this is Wes McDermott. This is the final video in Chapter 2. So in this video, this is the Unity Editor hands-on. So what we're going to do in this video is we're just going to walk through Unity. We're going to create like a very, very basic scene, and we're going to kind of just actually use all the things that we've been watching here in Chapter 2. Okay, so I'm starting here. I've got the Angry Bots project open. We're going to use some assets from this, but what we're going to want to do is create a new scene for this. So first thing, let's just kind of go through and fix our UI a little bit. So what I like to do is I like to take this game view here, and I'm just going to left click, drag and drop this tab here, and just snap this over to the side here so I can have both sides. And I might change my aspect ratio here to the 1280 by 720. Something else I'm going to want to do is go ahead and go up to my window here and pull my console out. So make sure that I have my console. I grab this tab, left click and drag and snap it down to the project browser down here so we can have that for us to use a little bit later on. So what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to use some of these assets, but let's start by creating a new scene for ourselves. So we'll come up to the top of the UI and we'll say File and we'll do New Scene. And we won't save this scene here. And then the first thing we're going to do is going to save this scene. So with the new scene open, I'm just going to hit, what I'll do is I'll just come over here to Save Scene. And we'll call this Demo. And you can see that it's going to place this in our Assets folder. So we'll hit Save. And here's our demo scene. Next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and come up here to my file and do my build settings here. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I add this demo scene here to my build. So I've got this open already, so I'm just going to click the Add to Current button. Now you can see that our demo scene here is available. Let's just left click, drag and drop this all the way to top, so we basically make this our first scene that runs at our first scene that loads at runtime. Okay, so we've got this set up. Here's our perspective view. We can't really see our grid or anything, so let's go ahead and just turn off our skybox, fog, and lens flare effects, and you can see that it now kind of toggles our grid on so we can see what we're doing a little bit better. And first, let's go ahead and just grab some assets here from that Angry Bots. So in our project browser, let's just kind of expand this view a little bit, and let's just click the Models button and kind of look at some models. Here's this catwalk here. So what I'm going to do is just come over, look at my inspector here. I'll pull open this preview window, and I can kind of take a quick preview of this object. Yeah, this looks pretty cool. Let's just left-click, drag, and drop this straight into our scene. So now we've got this object here into our scene. I'm going to hit the F on the keyboard to focus that into my selection. You can see that it's actually sitting pretty high off the grid. So let's come over to our inspector and let's kind of zero out these parameters. So I'm going to hit the 0 key, tab, 0, tab, 0. So now you can see what I've done there is I've taken the position and I've zeroed that all the way out. And now what I'll do is I'll just hit the F key one more time, and that'll focus that selection. And now you can kind of see where we're operating here. So right now you can see that we're in pivot mode, and you can see where this pivot is. So if I actually go and hit the E key to bring up my rotate tool and I start to rotate on the Z axis, you can see that that works like a hinge joint. So that what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and I'll click this pivot button and I'll put this into center mode. And now if I hit the W on the keyboard to bring up my move tool, I can have a better look at where that center is. And so now you can see that it's now all of our transforms are going to be in the center of the object. And then over here in my hierarchy, you can see that we have this catwalk A object. Okay, so let's go ahead and just duplicate this guy a couple times. So if I come up to my edit menu, I can come down and you can see that I've got some duplicate function here. That's just Apple D or Control D on Windows. So I'm going to duplicate this guy. You can see here in the hierarchy we now have two of these guys. I'm going to click on the X axis and just kind of left click and drag this guy over. So now we have two of these guys. Now all I'm going to do here is I'm just kind of making an extended platform, and I'm kind of building basically kind of on the grid, so to speak, where I'm reusing these elements here. And so what I'm going to do is I kind of want to really snap these guys together. So a really good way to do that here in Unity is using the vertex snapping option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the V key on the keyboard, and that's going to put me in a vertex snap. So now as I just kind of move my mouse around this object, the transform manipulator is kind of snapping itself to all these vertices. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to zoom in. I want to take this vertex here and I want to snap it to its neighbor over here. So I'm going to hold down the V key, move my mouse over into this area, left click, and just just kind of gesture drag right over to this other grate here, and you can see where that just snaps right into place. So we'll do this again. Now what I'll do is I got this guy selected, Apple D to clone, move this guy out of the way a little bit, hold down the V key, vertex snap, get the transform into the right vertex I want to use, left click, drag it over, and snap it. Same thing, let's do this one more time. So Apple D, let's kind of move this guy out of the way, Let's just kind of zoom in here, hold down the V key, and snap. So now we've just kind of snapped that guy into position a little bit. So now you can see that we've got a little bit larger platform. We've reused a single game object. All this stuff is going to batch. So if we go ahead and we've got our game view, we can't really see what's going on yet. So what we're going to do is just grab hold of our camera. Let's hit the F key to kind of focus in on that camera, and now let's just move this camera up. Let's grab hold of the Z-axis handle and then pull this guy in a little bit, and then maybe we'll go into the rotate mode by hitting the E key on the keyboard, and then we'll just kind of pivot, kind of rotate this guy down, hit the W key to go back into move, and I'm just going to move this guy up on the Y a little bit, and then again rotate on the X. So again, just kind of a little bit of translation here. And at this point, you can see that we're actually in our local space. So I actually want to move this camera forward a little bit, but if I kind of move it this way, you can see that not only is it moving forward, but it's also moving down. I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change from local to global mode, and now I can move this guy forward without translating it down. So you can see how I can start to move that forward. So I've just kind of framed that view up. And so now let's go ahead and just add ourselves another object on here. So again, I'm going back to my project browser. I'm going to kind of just scroll through this guy, try to find something else. Let's see, what do we got here? A kiosk. I don't think we want that. There's some hoses. We don't want that. Robot arm. No, let's just find something here real quick. Here we go. How about a crate medium? That's always good. Okay, so here we got a crate medium. Let's just left click, and this time I'm just going to throw this guy right here into the hierarchy, so I can also just left click and drag into the hierarchy view. And what I'm going to do is you can see that he's, if I can hit F on the keyboard, he's way off into the distance here. So let's just go ahead and set his position. So again, we're just going to zero this out. So I'm just hitting tab on the keyboard. I'm going to go ahead and select this guy again, hit F on the keyboard to focus that. And now let's just go ahead and just kind of place him right here on the grates. Another way that I could kind of help do that is let's go into an orthographic view. So I'm going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to left click on the X-axis handle here. And now I can kind of move myself into an orthographic view, so I can see a little bit better what I'm doing here. I'm also going to just hit the R key to scale this guy up. So I'm in scale mode. I'm going to scale this guy up. Hit the W key to go back into move. And now I've just kind of translated this guy into place here. And now I'm going to go right back into my perspective mode. And then I'm going to hit the E key just to rotate this guy on the Y-axis a little bit. Not really sure why, but yeah, just might as well. Okay, so now we've got these objects set up. Let's go ahead and add just a little bit of some lighting to this scene. But before let's go ahead and do that. Let's go game object. Let's do a create other, and this time we're going to create a directional light. So we create a directional light into our scene. It's placed at the origin. Let's hit W on the keyboard and just kind of move it out of the way. Now, directional light position doesn't matter, but what I like to do is just kind of like to have them kind of in the way, or in kind of in the position that they would naturally be at. So, directional light kind of simulates sunlight, but I typically move them. Rotation is really all that matters. But so right now, you can see we're not seeing anything. We're not seeing any kind of lighting or anything like that, and that's because of the shader that these guys are using by default. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's go ahead and select this guy here. Let's go over to our inspector, and so we've got some components here, and like we talked about in our previous video, we have this material, and by default this guy's using this self-illumination AngryBot shader. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to just left click on this, and I'm just going to choose this bump diffuse. And so what that's going to do is, and actually I'm going to have to go and find the normal map again. Let's not worry about that. Let's just do a diffuse for this portion here. So now you can see that all this is using is a diffuse texture. And let's do the same thing for these grates here. So I'm going to select one of these guys. And what you'll notice here is that, we don't see anything. And the reason being is if we come back over to the hierarchy, you can see this guy's got a little drop-down arrow. If we do that, you can see that this is kind of like a little nested hierarchy in itself. So we've got catwalk, we've got this cube, and then we've got these two cube surfaces here. So we actually have like two surfaces in one that are underneath a single transform. And that's something that you can easily do. So inside of Unity, what you can do is, like I said, you can create an empty game object. So let's say we just create this empty game object, and I go ahead and I position him into 0 here. So we 0 this guy out, and he's just sitting, out here. There's nothing a part of this. If you look, there's nothing here. And let's just say that I want to take this crate here that I have, and I want to place it inside of this game object. So like setting up a child-parent relationship. So I'm just going to take this crate, left-click, drag and drop it right over top of the game object, and then what it does is you can see that it parents or places that that crate medium inside of this game object. And now what I can do for this is I can just say this is crates. Okay, so sometimes you can use the game object not actually for a playable or any type of object at all in your scene. You could just use it for straight organizational purposes, and I do that quite often. So now what we'll do is we'll come over to this catwalk, we'll grab this P cube, and let's just do the same thing. Let's just pull this guy into diffuse. Let's see, let's do the same thing for this poly surface here. Let's just change the shader that this guy's using. So now you can see that we have changed the shader on this guy, and if we go ahead and grab our light, and let's change some parameters on our light here, like the color. So let's go ahead and give this thing a different color. So I click this little color swatch here, and I'll come over to this yellowish type, and I'll go ahead and color this guy yellow, so you can see where this is actually affecting the color here inside of our scene. And something else I'll do is I'll go to my shadow type, and I'll just turn on hard shadows, and so you'll notice that we don't actually see any shadows. So sometimes what you need to do is make sure that your scene's set up to work with shadows. So let's do this real quick. I didn't create this Angry Bot scene, so sometimes things can change. So let's do this. Let's go over to Edit, and let's go over to our project settings, and we're going to go to our quality settings. And you can see that we're set to use this good setting here. And if we come down and look at good setting, shadows by default is disabled. So if we change this, maybe we change this to, let's see, simple, beautiful, or let's see, underneath simple here, you can see that hard shadows only is checked. And so now underneath that quality setting, you can see that we're starting to see the shadows inside of our scene. So again, as we mentioned in a previous video, you can see where these quality settings are going to change how your game is. So let's just say that this was a game and we wanted to be able to target different platforms, and you want to say like when you build your game, you can actually give someone the ability to choose what type of what type of quality they want to run this game at. So if they say, well, I don't have a very good PC, I want to run it at the fastest quality, you can see one of the things it's going to do is disable real-time shadows. So in our case, we'll just leave this at simple, and now you can see that we have some shadows here, and we'll just kind of position this light a little bit, and just kind of rotate this guy around. Maybe we'll increase his intensity just a little bit so we can see this a little better. And so, just for demonstration's sake, we've added a light, we've colorized it, or tinted it here with a color, and we've added some hard shadows to this guy. Okay, so now let's go in and add a little bit of interactivity to this. We'll add a little script. I'll tell you what, before we do that, let's select our camera. I usually don't like this blue background, so I'm going to come over to my inspector. I've got this background color. Let's go ahead and just change that to black. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add some interactivity. A little script real quick, and what we'll do is we'll make a really simple script that allows us just to click on this great object, and when it does that, it'll print something out to the console. So something really simple. So we'll select our assets folder here. Let's create ourselves a new folder in this. So let's do create folder, and we'll call this demo script. Well, here, let's just call this demo. And so now what we'll do is I'll just double click. I'm inside this folder here. Let's do create. Let's make ourselves a C# script, and we'll call this demo. And now let's just double click to kind of run this script here. So double click, that's going to open that up into monodevelop, and now we can actually start writing some things. So we've got our start function here, which is our initialization, and then we have our update. And so what we're going to do is we're going to want to shoot a raycast out into the scene. Here, let's go back to Unity here. So from our game view, what we're going to do is we're going to click, and it's going to shoot a ray out into the scene. It's going to hit something. So, we have to have a collider on some of these guys. It's going to hit something, and then it's going to tell us what it hit, and then if it's this crate object that we want it to be, we're going to print something out to the console. And so to do that, what we're going to want to do is we're going to do a raycast. So in order to do that, we're going to use this raycast. So you can see that we have raycast hit, and so this is something that we would, what I would typically do is just kind of look this up here into the script reference. So here we'll come over here to our Unity script reference, and you can see that I've already found this here into the script reference. So raycast hit collider, and so like I told you in a previous video, like by default this will be sitting at JavaScript. You could do C#, and this kind of gives us a code example of exactly exactly what we want to do. So what we want to do is we want to kind of look at, input. Tell you what, we can actually just copy all this stuff right here, just for speed's sake here. So let's just copy this. Let's go back over to, well, here, go into MonoDevelop, and let's just paste this right here into our update function. And let's just take a look at what this is going to do for us. So we'll just kind of clean this up a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull off from the input. So we're going to do a little if statement here. Say if input dot get mouse button down, and if we kind of look at this guy, we can say input dot get. You can see that we can get mouse button down, up, joystick names, get key, all these kind of things, access. And in our last video, what we did was we took a look at, we went over here to edit, project settings, input, and we talked a little bit about the input editor, so how we're going to configure this kind of stuff, and so or configure input, and that's what we're referencing here in our code here. So get mouse button down 0, so that's meaning 0 meaning like the left mouse button. So this is basically saying if we click the left mouse button, then we're going to do some of the code, which is right here. First off here, let's go ahead and just kind of let's zoom this in a little bit so you can see this a bit better in the video. So input got get mouse button down. We're looking at our left mouse button. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a variable for the raycast hit, and we'll just, like typically people could just call that hit. And then what we want to do is we want to do this. We want to do ray. We want to create a variable called array. So this is the ray, and this ray equals our camera.main.screenPoint to ray. Okay, so it's basically saying I want to translate the screen point to array, and then it's going to ask for that position, and that position is going to be our input.mouse position. So again, we're utilizing the input API there to find this mouse position. And so camera.main, how does it know that? Well, if we come back over here to Unity, we select our camera. We had talked in a previous video about tags, so you can see this camera is actually set to be the main camera. So this script is going to know that whenever you work with camera.main, it's going to basically do this, or basically know that it's utilizing whatever camera in your scene has the main camera tag applied to it. So there's how we're using tags. And then so we basically have a raycast hit variable, we have a ray variable, and now what we want to do is we just want to do a quick check here. So we want to say if physics.raycast, so we're going to do a raycast for the ray, and then we're basically looking at this hit here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, well here, we're going to change this a little bit. So let's do this. So let's make ourselves inside this if. So if we have a hit here, let's just clean this up so you can see these brackets a little bit. Just kind of removing some of the white space here. So if physics.raycast, and we're going to check the ray, what we're going to do is check to see if we hit a certain object. So what we're going to do is we're going to say another if statement here. So I'm going to type if, and then we're going to say if hit.collider.gameObject.tag is equal to, and let's just come up with a name. We'll call this, let's just do this. We'll say crate, and then we'll close out our quotes here. So basically at this point we're going to check to see if whatever this hit, whatever this ray hit, if its collider attached to its gameObject.tag is equal to crate, then we're going to do something. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to do debug.log, and we're just going to say, let's do this. We'll turn on cap locks here. I say we clicked the crate, and then end that with a semicolon there. So we're going to cast out array from the input.mouse position. We're going to check to see if the hit.collider.gameObject.tag, so whatever that thing hit, its collider, if it has a game object that has a tag called crate, then we're going to just log out, hey, we clicked the crate. So let's go ahead and save this demo script. Let's go back over to Unity, and now we can actually apply that to our game object. So let's see, we've got our crate here. Let's just go ahead and just left click, drag and drop our script here onto our crate. So now we have that set. One of the things that we got to do, well, two things to this for this to work, is that we need to actually have a tag for this guy. So let's create a new tag. So let's come over here to add tag, and let's come into our tags here, and then remember from the script we called this crate. So now we have a new tag called crate. Let's select our item again, and let's actually set that tag. So here we're just going to check that to crate. So this game object has a tag called crate. And then one other thing we need to do is we had talked in the script. Let's go back to this guy that we were looking for a collider. So in order for this to work, we have to have a collider on this guy. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another component to this. And what we want to do is we want to add a physics component. We could do that through this button here. We can click this, and our little context drop-up menu is going to show up. So if we go to physics, you can see that we can add a collider. So let's do a box collider. And what happens, we'll kind of zoom in onto the screen here. You can see that we've got this kind of green bounding box. This is a collider around our object. And if we wanted to, we could come in and we could change the scale of this guy on the X and Y. So by default, it kind of sets itself to be the bounding box of the object. And that's good. We'll kind of leave it at that. So now that we've got this set up, we've got our tag and we've got our box collider, everything should work. So let's go ahead and hit play here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring my mouse over into the game section. I'm just going to click on the crate. And you can see that way down here in the bottom, we get some output. Let's go back to our console here so we can see this. We click the crate. Let's do that again. Let's get our mouse here. Here, we'll just kind of maximize our game view here. Let's click the crate. And you can see that we click the crate. So as each time we click this, the ray is cast. It hits the collider. That collider's game object is true because its tag is set to crate. So then it runs that next line of code. Which then just
and that's
going to
close out chapter 2
to
for
the
us.
console.
So we covered a lot in this video. We kind of ran through this little project very quickly. But what I really wanted to kind of hit home and cover on this is just how fast it is to actually work inside of Unity. And what we actually covered here was we talked about we used the project browser to find some elements. We placed some elements out here into our 3D scene. We snapped some objects together. We rotated and translated some of these items around to kind of build up our scene here. We added we adjusted our camera. We added a light. We checked our quality settings. We added shadows. We did some parenting here within the hierarchy view. We added a custom component here. We added a box collider to this guy. We set our own user tags. We also changed some materials. So instead of using we went onto the material of these guys and we changed what shader was actually being used. And then finally we went in and we created a very simple script that allowed us to click on an object, and we were able to check to see that specific object based off if the ray that was cast from the mouse was equal to the crate or the game object's tag of crate. And then we printed some information here out to our console. So we covered a lot of ground pretty quickly, but I hope that helps to give you the overall big picture of what Unity is and how it works, and how you can quickly build up your games and your projects within this editor.